new nations hoped to protect their fragile freedom through the international body that met for the first time in 1920. The League of Nations held its first meeting in a Swiss hotel. Its supporters shared an optimistic belief that a new era of international relations was beginning. They were undeterred by the fact that the Americans weren't there, Congress had refused to join, and that the Russians and the Germans weren't members either. They believed the League could replace the bad old world of secret diplomacy with open discussion. Public opinion would always be listened to. Weak countries would have a voice as well as the strong. Poland's Prime Minister, the pianist Paderewski, called it the dawn of a new order. The League tried to build up popular support for its work. Jennifer Hart campaigned for the idea in Britain.
My role in the League of Nations Union was to try and get members of the public to understand the ideas behind the League, especially that it was a totally new thing, especially this concept of one was concerned if nation A was attacking nation B, you couldn't just stand on the sidelines, and to get public opinion to bring pressure on government to use the machinery of the League. So one didn't go around looking for faults in the government or weaknesses so much as saying, look, it's a wonderful new construction and it could be made to work if people really wanted to make it work.
Many saw the first priority as disarmament. If the League could only get nations to agree to reduce their weapons, then the threat of war would be removed. Germany was almost completely disarmed in the early 1920s as a condition of Versailles. Though Britain, the United States and Japan agreed to limit their navies, the World Disarmament Conference, so many expected, was constantly postponed. But the League of Nations did begin to put another Wilsonian ideal into practice: self-determination. For the first time, some minorities were given a chance to choose which country they wanted to be in. Plebiscites were held in several regions that had been part of Germany. On the border of Denmark and Germany, people voted to be Danish. But for each winner, there were losers. Each result created a new wave of refugees. Though they'd won their plebiscite, German speakers on part of the new Polish-German border were driven from their homes, and the Poles took the territory anyway. When great new memorials to the dead were completed 10 years after the war, people were reminded of the slaughter. A stream of visitors made the pilgrimage to the recent battlefields in France and Belgium to see the trenches where a generation had fallen. The war still haunted the minds of those who had fought in it.
The dreams were, some of them were pretty horrible. Sometimes you dreamt about getting through the barbed wire, and sometimes you dreamt about seeing Germans approaching with fixed bayonets, and other times you could see the ground being swept in front of you with German machine guns, and you're being told you're going to advance over that ground, which was a shocking feeling.
A new wave of novels and films rekindled the sense of horror. In All Quiet on the Western Front, ordinary soldiers discussed the absurdity of war.
Well, how do they start a war?
Well, one country offends another.
How could one country offend another? You mean there's a mountain over in Germany gets mad at a field over in France?
Well, stupid, one people offends another.
Oh, that's it. I shouldn't be here at all. I don't feel offended.
It don't apply to tramps like you.
Good. Then I can be going home right away.
You just try it. Yeah, you want to get shot?
The anti-war films increased public impatience for disarmament. When the League of Nations finally arranged the World Disarmament Conference for 1932, expectations rose.
And we are going to go to Geneva to get the nations of the world to join in and reduce this enormous, disgraceful burden of armaments which we are now bearing from one end of the world to the other.
In Geneva, the conference took delivery of mass petitions collected from around the world. The millions of signatures were designed to put pressure on governments and show how people expected them to banish war.
I went to one of the opening sessions of the conference when people came from all over the world petitioning for disarmament, and it was meant to be a tremendous moment. We all had great hopes that there really was going to be very substantial disarmament.
Australie, 1102-108. Australia, 112,108. And Fiji,
The final tally was announced as the conference began.
United States of America, 1,135,453, and Hawaii, 130.
There are lunatics in every country who really want the attempt to organize peace to be abandoned. No one doubts that disarmament is possible, but the common man wants to know whether the governments with great military, naval and air forces are really in earnest in their desire for peace. If they are, a disarmament treaty can be framed. And if it is accepted, the whole international atmosphere will change as if by magic.
But international idealism clashed with old-style national self-interest. Arriving in New York, Poland's former Prime Minister Paderewski explained the problem.
Mr. Paderewski, what is your opinion about disarmament and the recent efforts in order to eliminate the possibilities of war?
It's a very good intention, very fine idea, but a very difficult task. Everyone expects the other fellow to disarm, but is not ready to disarm himself.
The trust in what democracy and reason might do was increasingly shaken. The Germans, still bitter at their treatment, brought a new leader to power, Adolf Hitler. Karl Nagel, now training to be a policeman, saw him in Munich.
I stood in the crowd as Hitler drove past. When he saluted us, we hailed him and shouted. Hitler tried to remove the burdens that the Treaty of Versailles had imposed on Germany. Hitler promised work and bread for all Germans. He promised to eliminate the high unemployment. He promised to make Germany a nation that could show its face in Europe.
The Italians, also dissatisfied with the peace, were given the same assurances. Mussolini promised them a new Roman Empire. Millions of Italians rejoiced in the seeming miracle of fascism. In In 1935, Mussolini's forces invaded Ethiopia. The Ethiopians and their emperor stood no chance against a modern army. Though the League of Nations issued resolution after resolution, the Italians defied them.
The League of Nations, a grave disturbance. Today, Haile Selassie comes to plead for his lost empire. He wants them to make Mussolini give up Ethiopia.
His Majesty Negus Haile Selassie. I call upon the first delegate of Ethiopia.
Italian newspapermen are ready for an outbreak against the emperor whose country their country has taken, waiting for his first word.
From the platform. Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le...
Trying to quell the disturbance, lights turned out. The disturbers ejected, arrested, and he is able to make his appeal.
የሚገባውን ትክክለኛ ፍርድ ለመጠየቅ ዛሬ በዚህ ቀርቤያለሁ። ምክንያቱም ወታደሮቹ ቦምቡ በወደቀ ጊዜ ጋዙን ነፋስ እስኪወስደው ድረስ መበታተኑን ስላወቁበት ነው።
But the League lacked the will to help the emperor. The failure to save Ethiopia came just as the League moved into new headquarters, a monument to the dream of Woodrow Wilson. The magnificent building was said to be specially designed for peacemaking. But in the meantime, the League had been defied by Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia, as well as Japan's seizure of Manchuria. America still wasn't a member. Germany had been admitted, but Hitler had taken it out again. In a League film made to enlist public support, an official listed the backlog of work.
Political problems are dealt with by the Council or the Assembly, and for this purpose, the political section prepares the work and executes the decisions. Here are some recent problems: the Sino-Japanese dispute, the Ethiopia-Italy dispute, the Chaco dispute, the Letitia dispute, problems of Danzig, the settlement of the Assyrians, the Saar plebiscite, and the return of the territory to Germany.
With the League's failure to deal with the dictators, the idea of disarmament was dying.
At the new home of the League of Nations in Geneva, the chief news is of nations arming. It is announced that Britain will spend more on armaments. Why? Because the whole world is arming. Japan demands parity on the sea with Britain and the United States. She wishes to supplement her great military strength by greater sea power. Germany is building aeroplanes, commercial craft, but perhaps convertible. Her right to rearm is being tacitly recognized. Aeroplanes for Italy, thousands of them lined up in spectacular array. Mussolini has fostered an air force which challenges comparison with the finest in the world. France maintains her military strength, trains artillery, mechanizes her powerful army. France demands security and will not disarm. And Britain, long content with dominance on the sea, contemplates bigger estimates for all three services.
In Europe, the fear of a new war was growing all the time. Winston Churchill, then a political outsider, took part in a radio series about the causes of war.
I'm afraid that if you look intently at what is moving towards Great Britain, you will see that the only choice open is the old grim choice our forebears had to face, namely, whether we shall submit or whether we shall prepare. This truth may be unfashionable, unpalatable, no doubt unpopular, but is it the truth?
Others still clung on to the ideal of collective security through the League of Nations. They made a film shown in thousands of cinemas.
£2,000 million a year spent on arms.
I'd fight tomorrow if I thought a war would end war,
But that's what they told my father in 1914, and we're no better off now.
When there's a quarrel between two people, the police are called in to settle it. Why can't the League of Nations be strong enough to settle disputes between two nations?
Permanent peace can be secured by discussion. I've no quarrel with Frenchmen or Germans or Russians or anybody else for that matter. So let's be sensible and work together for peace by reason.
Write to your MP.